Welcome back to Used to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is here today to talk to you about Chainstitch Machines. What is a chainstitch? Who made Chainstitch Machines? And how does that translate into toy machines for kids to learn on? This episode's purpose is to show you that there is more than one kind of sewing machine stitch in the world, and to sing the praises of a machine that is actually more useful than you might think. Chain stitches are useful in industrial and domestic settings, and can even be created by hand if you want to understand what we are talking about as an exercise during the episode. We start with the Wilcox & Gibbs Chainstitch Automatic Silent Sewing Machine, then move over to Singer's copies in the form of models 20 and 40. TR shares the sound of her hand crank and reassures us that there are both manual and electric versions of these tiny little machines. And at the end, as we usually do, we have some advice for how to get a new sewer started with the machine topic of the day.
Well, welcome back to Used to Sew. Here we are. On my side of the Cascade Mountains, it is gray and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect sewing weather. I just wish I had a wood stove to heat my flat irons on, because living off-grid, I don't have enough electricity to run an iron. But I have totally been enjoying my hand crank VS3 that we talked about a few episodes ago. What an awesome machine. What have you been doing this week, Ray? Anything about sewing?
Well, over here, it's been continuing to be gorgeous October weather, though in my definition of gorgeous, that does include a good rainstorm. We had a bit over an inch of rain, which I don't think is going to get the salmon all the way up to our place, but I do think it's going to help them get closer. In the sewing room, I have been rotary cutting some fabric that I bought from St. Vinny's because I just got too tweezed out about picking fabric that I've been holding on to for years for another test quilt. So I just went to St. Vinny's and got an $8, thing of fabric that had been folded up and prepared. And I have spent this week cutting it up into squares and evaluating stuff about it. There's some really long strips that I've kept as long strips. I think I'm going to try to do some kind of piece together border, but I have a bunch of pinned together squares that need to be marked and stitched for my next triangle piece top of a quilt. So that's what I've been doing. And also, looking at fabric and thinking about clothing items that I would really like to make, getting beyond quilting, also remembering that I have some very nice clothing material that I could use if I was brave enough to actually settle on a pattern and project and all of that. So really trying to psych myself up to make a decision out of the potential into the real, but we'll get there.
Yeah, same here. It's like I didn't bring my tote full of winter clothes with me. So I'm like, what do I have in my fabric bin that I could make a hat out of or something? So I haven't quite got to that yet. So I appreciate you sending me all the pictures of the sewing machines from your outing, too. It's like,
yeah. That was a lot of sewing machines that St. Vinny's had.
Yeah, 3 sergers.
So many. And it was very fun going through them all and looking at them, but only one of them even had the lines to make me interested. And then it was, a Viking. So.
Oh, yeah, that Viking and that, I couldn't tell if that little necky Lydia was metal or plastic.
I'm pretty sure it was plastic. I didn't actually touch it, but it looked like all the other ones in terms of the lighting, the way it was bouncing off, so.
Yeah, it looked plastic, but the Viking, for somebody who's into Vikings, that was a fine sewing machine right there.
It was fun sending you those pictures. Just look what I'm not getting tempted to buy because I know better.
But it's like you're out birding. You're like, What can I see today? What can I see? What's this? What's that? Is that a rare bird? Is that, that's another one of them little brown tweets, little white plastic sewing machine.
There was a very nice looking Touch and Sewer 3, but I don't need one.
No, I wouldn't buy one.
There was also an amazing looking layout table that I'm kind of regretting not buying because it was adjustable height. So it was, for the audience, it was a layout table where the surface was just embedded with the whole grid work of lines and curves and diagonals. That was just embedded into it. It wasn't painted on. It was just the material. And then the whole thing, it folded, obviously, like layout tables do, but it also had adjustable height legs on it.
That's something you could use.
Which, as a very short person, I have actually been complaining about how my layout table is too tall, and I have to go up on my tippy toes in order to really push straight down with the rotary cutter. It's sort of a pain in the ass. And in hindsight, I probably should have just bought a new layout table. Because the reason I didn't buy it was because I don't technically need it. I have two already, and it had a big chunk out of the surface, which would have needed to be like patched. It was a pretty huge like chip out of the particle board. But really, the height adjustment would make it so handy. I really doubt it's going to be there if I go back.
If you feel that you need to get rid of one of your existing layout tables, I don't have one.
Yeah, I really should have.
And I'm going to have room for one soon, probably in another month or so. As soon as the roof's on the cabin, man, let me bust out some fabric.
Yeah, so that would have been a good accommodation, but oh well.
Yeah. Things happen. I have seen really cool pieces. For instance, I'm kind of sort of maybe looking, going to have room. I could actually have a quilt frame, which is you sit down and you do hand quilting. But even more exciting, a loom. Looms come in all different sizes, but being able to like loom up some cool fabrics, I don't know.
I've always wanted to play with a loom. I've never gotten a chance, but they look so interesting.
Yeah. And there's a whole store in Eugene dedicated to textile stuff that isn't sewing. It's right on the corner of 99 there, Eugene Textile something. People come from all over to go to it, buying like fleeces and spinning wheels. And speaking of old school technology, I've been binging on Downton Abbey.
Oh, what a show for costumes. What a show for costumes.
Man. For those of you who don't know, this is a show that's set in England and it starts in 1911. And I'm up to the 1921 point in their timeline. But watching the clothes change, the styles change has just been fantastic. And that like the old lady doesn't ever change her style because she's old. But also, of course, I'm looking out for sewing machines, right? And finally, here's a scene where one of the characters is trying to teach some other downtrodden women some skills, and she's got some hand crank sewing machines. And they're in there ticketing in a way, and I'm like, what kind are they? But this show is filmed and set in England. They're not singers. Well, they could have been, but they're not. I can see that. I don't know what they are, but they're hand cranks. Last night, I was watching another episode, and they're in a character's house, and there's a hand crank sitting on a table. The funny thing is it's facing the wrong way as if you would have actually sewn on it. I don't know, but it's definitely a Singer 127, or at least it's got the Phoenix decals on it. I'm going to have to go back and look for sure. But what are the characters doing? I don't know. I'm looking at the light switches and the sewing machines. And a couple episodes ago, one of the characters got an electric toaster. Because we're in the early 20s now. We're in that area of electricity.
And wealthy people who could afford gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah. More and more of the rooms are getting electric light as the series goes on. Really subtle stuff. Those are lock stitch sewing machines. What I want to talk about today, and let's get right down to it, I want to talk about chain-stitch sewing machines, which is the other type of way the stitch was formed in early sewing machines. Okay, we've been talking about lock stitch machines, which is a needle on the top, brings a loop down and passes around a shuttle or a bobbin and then pulls up again. Well, the bobbin also has threads. So you've got two threads. They meet in the center of the fabric sandwich and lock. Tension on the top, tension on the bottom. What you're looking for is those two threads lock in the middle of your fabric sandwich. Okay, so that's a lock stitch. There still is, another type of stitch formation called a chain stitch. And those of you who are already vintage sewing machine people will probably, your mind will go right to the Wilcox and Gibbs chain stitch automatic silent sewing machine. One of the finest examples of a chain stitch machine ever. Very distinctive looking. It's that little C-shaped one. You know what I'm talking about, Radia?
Yeah, I have seen enough different chain stitch machines, and I'm pretty sure you've even shown me a Wilcox and Gibbs somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
So yes, it's much more C-shaped. It looks almost like a clamp or something rather than a sewing machine. It really, often to me when I first glance at them, I think that it's some other piece of equipment because it's too C-shaped and it's backwards at that. So
Yeah. Like, what is this thing? It's a sewing machine. It's got a needle. It's got a wheel. Okay. Needle goes up and down. It must be some kind of a sewing machine. How a chain stitch machine works is the needle goes down, makes a loop, and then this little rotating finger called a looper catches it, pulls it in a complete circle, and is right up in time for the needle to catch and poke through that loop. It's making a chain out of one thread.
And not locking it in place. It's held in place by its own friction, but it's not locked.
By its own friction, but is not locked. This is the classic, and you would see this in old silent movies and old cartoons where a guy would come up to another guy, oh, you've got a thread on your suit, and he would pull the thread and then the whole sleeve would come off.
Right.
That's a chain stitch.
Right. You might also find these on large bags of beans or something. If, say, you buy beans in bulk, then that's how they're fastened, or like chicken feed or whatever. It's the same thing.
And on modern ready-to-wear, you will find the chain stitch.
The scandal.
It's not all by itself anymore. Picture Levi's or jeans. I'm saying Levi's in a generic sense. Picture the outer seam of your jeans, that big folded over top stitched with gold thread. Okay, look at the seam that's opposite that. I think it's on the inside of the leg. Okay, it's got the fabrics all serged together, and then next to that serged part is a chain stitch. But it's a 2-thread chain stitch, which is a little bit more secure. And the thing with the 2-thread chain stitch, you have to pull both threads to get it to come apart. But it can still come apart, just like an unzip thing. Some of my chicken feed bags were actually 2-thread chain stitch.
Really?
Yeah. The reason a chain stitch is used industrially is...
convenience?
That's one way to put it.
The ease of undoing things?
No, think about thread. Think about
one
sewing
thread
and
instead
sewing
of
and
two
sewing.
threads.
One thread, one big cone of thread. There's no stopping to rewind or fill bobbins, right?
There we go.
So and so and so and so. And that's those big, huge, a 1-thread or even a 2-thread chain stitch. It's chaining. It's not needing a bobbin. So when you look at your ready-to-wear clothes and you look at the seams very closely, how can you tell if it's a chain stitch or a lock stitch? And a lot of shirts in the 60s would point out that they were single needle tailoring lock stitch because of the bad reputation of, pull a thread, there went your sleeve. A chain stitch on the top, chain stitch and a lock stitch, on the top needle side, the side that you're looking at when you sew, they're going to look the same after they're sewn. Oh, stitches. Turn them over. Oh, now there's something different. The chain stitch on its backside is this beautiful series of interlocking loops. It's decorative and it's stretchy. So for sewing on the bias, a chain stitch is really a cool thing. It's got some give to it. The decorative aspect is also still used today. You sew your piece from the wrong side, and then on the right side you'll see that beautiful decorative thing. A lot of imported garments from South Asia have really elaborate rayon chain stitch features on them. So it's a very beautiful, useful type of stitch. The other thing, now let's get back to Wilcox and Gibbs here. They advertised their machine as silent. Silent. We've talked before about the Davis and other types of machines and how much machinery is in there rattling around and moving and grooving and making machinery sounds. A chain stitch machine is mechanically quite simple, so less moving parts, less noise. If you listen to a Wilcox and Gibbs, they have a really unique little sound. It's different than a lock stitch machine, but they're very quiet. So picture it's 1910 and you're doing all the family's sewing, and here's the old man sitting in the parlor trying to smoke his cigar and read his newspaper, whatever. Silent is good. That was their gimmick. Oh, this chain stitch forming mechanism is much more silent than any sort of lock stitch, round bobbin or long shuttle. Okay, got me there. Here's one other cool thing about a chain stitch, especially back then. People didn't have a lot of clothes, but they did have a lot of kids. So they passed, hand-me-downs were a thing. Even when I was a kid, hand-me-downs were a thing. You've got 3 girls. Okay, let's turn up this hem, and you automatically sew a lot of space into that hem because you're going to let it down as she grows. A chain stitch, the ease of removal can be very useful in this situation.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to be able to let down a hem or remove a piece of intricate trim for laundering, pull the chain stitch, just comes right off. Fancy collars and cuffs and stuff like that.
Oh, that makes sense. So I have a fun factoid about the chain stitch. You can make it with your hands. This was the very first thing I ever learned at Waldorf, was what we called finger knitting. And it's where you make a single row of knit stitches with just a single thread and your fingers. And it is a chain stitch. That is what it is. And it doesn't link to anything, which, like with knitting, obviously, if you pull on a single thread of knitting, there it goes, right? Like that's how knitting undoes. But with knitting, the lines link up to each other sideways, and that's what gives them their strength. But finger knitting, what they taught to us in kindergarten, is just a single thread, which is much stronger and stretchier than the original yarn, right? But you can also undo it extremely quickly. So it was kind of one of those like very, very early mechanical tasks that they taught us. And every time I interact with a chain stitch in the wild, it just is like, oh, me and the sewing machine can do the same thing. We're able to make the same stitch. Actually, I just can't do it through a material the way that a needle can. That's all.
Picture, though, that your finger was poking through something and then back down and catching the loop.
Ta-da!
That would be a chain stitch. So there's a lot of uses. So Singer was like, Wilcox and Gibbs. All right. Singer made a competing model, Singer 24, which isn't quite beautiful and interesting looking chain stitch. It doesn't look anything like the Wilcox and Gibbs machine. It looks more like a Singer body, but the hand wheel is down low. It's not up high. And of course, it forms its stitches all differently. That machine was produced from 1888 till the mid 1940s. Also, notice on the 24 that the hand wheel turns clockwise, the opposite of most Singer sewing machines. Interesting. So it's a small machine. It's about the same size as a Wilcox and Gibbs, but it has a whole lot more complex system of feed dog and loopers. I mean, it's like I'm looking at a picture here. This is a full-on sewing machine. It's not a toy. But later, the chain stitch is so simple and so easy that, it would make a good toy, wouldn't it? Let's talk about the Singer Model 20. It's a chain stitch. It was originally marketed as a portable mending machine for career women. You're on the train and you're mending your whatever. But then somebody said, hey, this would be a great toy machine. And in the original owner's manual for the thing, I think there's a quote right at the front, and it's, as the twig is bent, so is the tree inclined.
Ha ha ha. Get them young. Start them young.
Right. So the idea being, let's get them started on a Singer. The Singer toy sewing machine was introduced in 1910. Okay, so this is Downton Abbey times, right? 1910.
Yeah. This is also when the Shelton McMurphy house is about 30 years old and is probably bustling with its second generation of family.
Yeah. Okay, I'm reading from Singer Sewing Info UK. I think this is Alex's site. When the Singer Model 20 toy sewing machine was introduced in 1910, it was in a league of its own. Although the Model 20 is a simple chain stitch design requiring just 40 pieces for the whole machine. It was very well engineered with a cast iron body. Compared to other toy sewing machines of its era, and indeed since then until the present, it is far more like a miniature adult's machine than a child's toy. When other manufacturers wanted to enter the same market, many decided to do so with a close copy of the Singer 20. That's like what we saw at the Shelton McMurphy house, that little one with the picture of the Queen on it.
Yeah, the one that was in the kids' room.
Right. Now, that was one of the cheapest types of chain stitches. The body's just stamped tin. I mean, it's just like, I don't know if you could even form a stitch on that. The Singer 20, though, as he's saying here, was engineered. I mean, it even came with a little instruction book that looked like the real thing and lists of parts. And like, it wasn't really considered a toy.
Right.
It was considered a miniature sewing machine. It was just later. They didn't originally produce it as a toy. They produced it as a really portable adult machine. But then somebody said, hey, this would be great for a toy. Because 1911, things are, sewing machines have been around for a while now. They're not exclusive. I mean, and of course, children the world over want to do what their parents are doing, right? So we've got miniature versions of everything.
Right. That's a perfectly normal thing to do. It's not like, let's indoctrinate children into being sewers. It's just like, yeah, we can make sewing machines small enough for kids to imitate their parents in full detail.
Yeah. And, the idea was you were going to make clothes for your dolls. But, as the twig is bent, so is the tree inclined. We're going to teach.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is your thing.
When you want your adult sewing machine, you would never think of getting anything other than a Singer because that's what you've already been sewing on. It's like just moving up sizes on an instrument, right? You start out at a small cello and you get to a full-size cello, but you're still playing cello the whole time.
It's right. And then some of us moved to bass.
Yes.
So Singer kept a toy machine in their line clear up until the early 60s. Though the mechanisms were pretty much the same. It's a chain stitch. It's doing its thing. The outer appearance of the machine changed right along with the adult machines. And the early 60s, the Singer introduced the So Handy Model 40, which was intended to replace the earlier Model 20 toy machines. These were made to look even more like an adult sewing machine with a deep pyramid-style base, solid hand wheel, enclosed drive mechanisms, and front-mounted tension discs. Electric models of these machines were embedded into a larger base unit, which housed the motor and controls. So check it out. They even made electric ones.
An electrified kids sewing machine. That's so cool.
Yes, but it's still the basic same chain stitch mechanics that they came up with in 1911.
Adorable.
Now, of course, the 1911 ones, I've got one sitting right here. It sounds like this.
Well, it's really cute because you painted it all pink. I like it.
I did.
I like it. That's very toy. Much toy energy.
We've talked about how I only buy machines that are pretty thrashed. Well, I bought this one thrashed so I could paint it pink. I mean, it didn't have any of the original decals or anything left. But I do sew on it when I want that little decorative thing happening. But it is, as I'm sitting here looking at it, all the moving parts are visible, which I love that. And of course, kids would too, right? They want to turn the handle and see all the little things go up and down and round and round.
How's it work? How's it work? Why does it work? Yeah.
But the later models, everything's enclosed, right? So this 40K from the early 60s, guess what it looks like? It looks like a Slant-O-Matic.
Of course.
It's two-tone tan. It's got a little bit of tail fin bulldog styling going on. It's the same machine inside, just like the adult machines. We're not changing what works, but we're going to change the styling to make things more exciting every few years. There are a lot of people that collect toy sewing machines.
Oh, I bet.
They are, they're small. There was zillions of them made.
And they're cute as hell.
They're cute. Germany was really big into these things. And a lot of people collect only German toy machines. Their decal patterns are just phenomenal. I don't know much about toys. Like I said, I bought this little 20 because I just always wanted to mess with it. I want to, it's like, why do I buy any machine? Hey, I want to see how that works. I want to take it apart. I want to clean it. I want to paint it. I want to sew something on it. And then I want to tell everybody how cool it is. Right? Typical.
And we live for that here at Used to Sew.
Oh, man. Now, I would like to have, it is a toy machine. You have to clamp it to the table.
Otherwise, it goes gallivanting away.
Yes, and it's very tiny. So, but I do love the chain stitch. I used to have a Wilcox and Gibbs back when we lived in the Red Barn house. But of course, as things happen, buy, sell, buy, sell, sell, it went somewhere. I'd like to have another one, but this is one of the machines we were talking about. What's it worth? A Wilcox and Gibbs in working conditions worth about $500.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're out there. They're not like super rare, but they're kind of rare. And they take a weird needle. And a lot of people just don't understand, oh, well, why would I want to have this weird machine? I would love to have a Wilcox and Gibbs hand crank. They're just so cool. Or a Singer Model 24, which was the copy version. But the Wilcox and Gibbs is so bizarre looking. It looks old. And all the pieces, you can see everything moving, which, of course, is a plus factor.
I mean, it really is, because sewing machines just feel magical. So if you can see it,
Yeah.
it makes the magic feel a little bit closer. It's very cool.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
for you and me and people who think like us, at least. I don't know. I guess some people find it disheartening, but it's the same reason I like astronomy. It's because I'm like, yes, make me feel small and insignificant. I want to know about the cosmos. I don't get I don't get why people don't enjoy that feeling. But apparently there are people out there who do not enjoy feeling insignificant in the face of cosmic scale. And I don't know. Maybe those people don't like to see sewing machine innards working. I don't know.
Even like the old, back in the days of steam locomotives, think of that. All the rods and moving parts and bits and bobs. And, oh man, even people who aren't into trains is like watching one of those go by is like, geez, look at all that stuff. Look at all the clockwork there. Or like back in the days of real clocks, watching all the little bits go around inside.
Or I remember from my childhood, the electric phones that had the clear case, so you could see all the electronics like lighting up and stuff with extra lights that did not need to be there. But like that was such a gimmick. But it was so much fun. We used that phone for years. It worked great, and we loved seeing it light up and all of the things inside, making it be an electric phone.
That was a good phone. I think that was a yard sale phone.
That phone did its job.
I've seen, I don't know where it is. One of the major manufacturers, Bernina maybe, has made a clear sewing machine. It's not for the public, but it's like a demonstration model so you can see all the things inside. I have to look that up.
This is a use of plastic I will allow. You're allowed to use plastic if you want to make a completely clear transparent machine so people can see the innards. That's allowable.
So say you do have a little Model 20 sitting on your desk, or you want to buy one, or a Wilcox and Gibbs, or like, okay, Chainstitch, I want to check that out. This is a great place for all of your fancy embroidery type threads. Trace a design on the wrong side of the fabric, sew that, and then flip it over. Flowers and things. It's really fun. Even if you don't want to do that, just make a bunch of lines of straight stitch, and then use that little inset for something on your garment that you're sewing. Cuffs or collars or yoke piece with all this neat chain stitch stuff on it. It can be a fun little thing to have. Like I say, the needles are not, you're not going to find them in your sewing machine store. You're going to have to order them. The size is usually 24x1. And again, round top needles, and you got to get them in just right. But the point is, it's doable. And if your little machine is not timed correctly, it's so easy. All the parts are just right there. It's like, little Susie can fix her own sewing machine.
I mean, getting kids into fixing their own stuff in addition to sewing, that makes a lot of sense. You can start tinkering with a really low stakes, accessible, like kid scale project.
Now let's talk about now. Let's say you've got a little kiddo who wants to learn to sew on a machine. Do not go out to your local mart and buy some plastic piece of crap for $50 because it's not going to work well. It's not going to last long, and it's going to frustrate the fuck out of this little person who really wants to be creative. Reminds me of my first guitar. The neck was so warped you couldn't push the strings down. Okay, well, I figured out how to play Delta Slide Blues instead. But the idea is if the kid wants to have a sewing machine, get him a real sewing machine. When I was about 6, I was fascinated with my mom's typewriter, and she showed me the correct way to use it. and I love typing letters to my grandma. Well, some well-meaning relative got me for my 7th birthday a toy typewriter. No. Ew. It was hard to use. The print wasn't as good. I'd already used the real thing. I'd been checked out on the real thing. I was able to operate it. Don't get a kid a toy when you can get him the real thing. Really. Now, this is another place where your vintage old thrift store sewing machine, don't get your kid a plastic anything. Get him something that's going to work. It's going to be a real tool. Because, your kid's going to say, wow, you respect me enough and my desire to make my own costume that you're going to, literally, you can pay less for a vintage machine that works, is safe, is the real thing. You'll pay less than for some plastic piece of crap in a mart. Walmart, Buy Mart, Shit Mart, whatever your mart is. Because there's a lot of good sewing machines out there that aren't the collectible, oh my God, it's beautiful, decals, featherweight, whatever. There's plenty of good solid Kenmores and Brothers and other weird off-brand Japanese machines that you can get for $20, $30, $40. Check the wiring, all the basic stuff. If a kid doesn't want an electric machine, a hand crank is totally viable. We've talked about hand cranks. There's plenty of 66s and 99s out there. Don't take the easy route and just go and buy a plastic thing in a box. Look around for your sewing machine person. If you're in a metro, there's going to be one. Ask us. We'll find you one. Sewing we don't want it to be a lost art. We want to keep appreciation for this awesome machinery and the history and the do-it-yourself ethos and getting away from plastic disposable clothes and plastic disposable sewing machines. Chain stitch or lock stitch, it doesn't matter. If your kid wants to sew, we need to get them a machine. And they'll learn how to stay threaded.
And there you have it, another series of loosely organized tangents around chain-stitch machines, which stretch from an original Wilcox and Gibbs to a mid-century Singer Sew Handy. We learned how a lock stitch differs from a chain stitch, how knitting is related to chain stitching, and what the industrial and domestic uses for a chain stitch are. You got to hear TR's chain stitch, got some advice on starting a new sewer on a small machine, and heard about how I was introduced to chain stitching as a handcraft. I was not exactly surprised to learn that what I had called finger knitting is actually chain stitching, but it was still cool to have that small little skill help me visualize what was happening in the recording today. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do repairs and restorations. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends and also with money at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.